update our efforts overwatch. Magazine out! Magazine in! Closing the gap!
So, that text in the trailer at the start of the video, that was a lie. The Neo-Volkite Pistol is not a perfect ally in any situation, but it's definitely a unique and interesting sidearm that's a lot of fun with some very clear-cut weaknesses as well. I completed 6 or 7 lethal runs this morning, and I'm already at Relic tier for the newest weapon in the Space Marine 2 arsenal. The nice thing about lethal is 3,500 XP or so gets you through those tiers real quick. But yeah, tried out a bunch of different builds so far, learned quite a bit, and had a good time rocking this new bad boy. So let's talk deflagrating heat rays from the Age of Strife. Number 1, what the hell is Volkite weaponry? Dating back before even the Horus Heresy or the rise of the Imperium, Volkite is a class of thermal ray weapon that can burn through organic material and heavy armor through thermodynamic heat transfer and combustion, which is to say, hold a beam on a target long enough and it will explode into jets of magma, ash, and boiling blood. Once relatively common within the early Astartes legions, Volkite had largely fallen from favor by the time of the Heresy, and moving into the 41st millennium, were typically only ever carried by champions or distinguished warriors of a Space Marine chapter, and they had to go deep into their armory to get it. That is until Belisarius Cawl, who has become quite OP in the era Indomitus, reinvented Neo-Volkite and helped equip Primaris Marines with the technology. So in the modern timeline, you'll see Blade Guard sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and other high-ranking Space Marines occasionally rocking these beastly contraptions. In-game, the Neo-Volkite pistol can be wielded by the Assault, Vanguard, and Bulwark, though I'd argue Sniper and Tactical should get it as well, considering they have no secondaries to choose from whatsoever. And in battle, it blasts a heat ray that deals cumulative single-target damage, ramping up until it generates a localized explosion for quote-unquote huge damage to your target and all nearby enemies. That's according to the devs. In reality, I have found the AoE explosion to be quite underwhelming on Ruthless and Lethal, even when spec'd entirely for that build, and so in no way, shape, or form would I call the Neo-Volkite Pistol a great crowd control weapon. It is simply not a good choice when you are being overwhelmed. Then again, most pistols aren't. That's typically going to be the role of your primary weapon. And yeah, that's probably not surprising either, right? A weapon that requires time to build up heat and damage on a single target can't necessarily be utilized all that effectively when 8 warriors are trying to carve you a new butthole. It's very difficult to have the time to just sit there holding a beam on a single warrior's head when a swarm is descending on you from 5 different directions, and even if it did kill super fast, you'd still just be killing the one, and on lethal, you're frequently going to be faced with 8, 10, 15 warriors all at once. Be that as it may, it still does some pretty interesting things, and some of it very well. My biggest pet peeve so far is that they didn't do anything special with the gunstrike whatsoever. The gunstrike animation looks and sounds exactly like a bolt pistol, it functions exactly like a bolt pistol, it even looks like it's firing one. Like, yeah, it shows the laser come out, and that's cool, but the way it's used is literally how you'd use a bolt pistol. It's kind of lame. I get they're limited to an extent with what they can do with the mechanic, with gun striking in general. Just by its very nature, it has to be fast and perform certain functions, but it would have been cool to see some special properties to differentiate it from gun striking, like that AoE heat explosion or thermal damage buildup, damage over time, really anything at all. Outside of that one big downside though, this is a really cool weapon. What I've found so far is that the Neo-Volkite pistol performs exceptionally well when multiple people are running it together, because it makes it very easy to focus down the same target building up heat quickly, juggling them between those explosive stagger states, and triggering those multiple explosions once they start glowing orange. And when your friend is making them explode, then you're also hitting them with the same heat, causing them to explode even faster, and you kind of just juggle them until they die. It's a big orange beam that lasers the target, and human nature will gravitate to wherever your friend's beam is, and that's when Majora's enemies start dying pretty quick. Headshots are very important on this gun. Do not make the mistake of holding on the torso. You still need to hit headshots with this weapon. It can take 3 to 4 seconds to blow up a gaunt sometimes on the thorax, but if you hit a headshot, it almost instantly kills or makes them executable. As a gaunt clearing weapon, it is incredibly satisfying if nothing else. Realistically, it will usually take you longer to kill 6 or 7 shooters with the Volkite than it would a regular bolt pistol, but the DPS really isn't bad in that role. Sweep over the head, things are gonna die. And the nice thing about it is that it's 100% accurate when hip fired or aimed. There's no bloom, no recoil, it has long range, so yeah, hit those heads, things will explode, and if there's something else next to it, that thing will be staggered too. And in that way, it feels very different to use than the other weapons in the game. The most interesting use case I've found for it so far is as a boss killer, something to use against terminus enemies like Neurothropes or Hive Tyrants. In the background here, you'll see multiple boss fights before I even unlocked Relic tier, and you go from, I think, 3+ damage at purple tier to 6 or 6+ damage in Relic tier. So I don't know if that's technically a double DPS increase, but going from 3 to 6 makes it sound like that. And even if it's not quite that, I think it is a substantial damage increase once you get to Relic. But yeah, these boss fights were done with purple tier, and you can observe the synergy of having 2 Volkite weapons focusing down the same target even when they're not Relic yet. So take what you're seeing right now and realize it's going to be even better once you get up to gold. We did have the benefit of a good sniper player helping out with the newly buffed Bolt Sniper, which was a very impactful buff, by the way. I'll explain that in another video. But notice how the explosions and heat buildup chain together to quickly burn through enemy HP. Even with green and purple tier Volkite pistols on lethal difficulty, which is, again, we're using weapons that are way below the difficulty we're on, the Hive Tyrant dies pretty quick here. It's a good thing too, for the Vanguard especially, it really rounds out your kit having this thermal weapon. The Melta is that perfect get off me tool for clearing mixed hordes and giving yourself space, but Vanguard struggles mightily with Zoanthropes and bosses when using Melta as his primary weapon, and frankly, the Instigator Bolt Carbine isn't that good at killing bosses anyway. It's not like the worst or anything, but there are way better options on other classes. But now, having an accurate beam pistol that can put the hurt on Terminus gives him some more options, gives him more utility, gives you some kind of DPS against bosses that he didn't have before, and you can see how fast Neurothropes and Carnifex crumble when you're focus firing on them. It's like we're role-playing Sid from Toy Story, that shithead kid with the magnifying glass, burning bugs with the power of the sun. Sadistic? Absolutely, but hey, we're putting the hurt on Xenos as the Emperor intended. Alien ain't got no humanity. Weird thing though is that for some reason this weapon is horrible versus Zoanthropes, and I can't really figure out why. My best guess is that it simply can't build up heat fast enough before the shield goes up to cause those explosions, but even against solo Zoanthropes, I've been super underwhelmed by its DPS, and I'm really not sure why it's so bad, because in that situation, they don't have their shield, so you would think you'd be able to trigger the explosion multiple times and down a Zoanthrope quickly. In practice, it doesn't seem to work that way at all, even once you hit Relic tier. Some weapons in Space Marine 2 feel like they have some kind of hidden massive negative modifier when shooting Zoanthrope specifically, and Neo-Volkite is no exception. Great versus Neurothropes, the big bad boss. Very bad versus Zoanthropes. Very strange. Something to keep in mind. Now, there are a couple Relic tier builds I've tried thus far. The first follows the entire top row all the way to the end, increasing the discharge, AoE explosion, improving its damage once you get to max heat, and then they go boom. On paper, that sounds awesome, and it was the first build I wanted to try out, because I'm like, okay, I can fire a beam into a single target and then cause a big AoE explosion that kills everything around it, right? Wrong. For some reason, this particular build felt very underwhelming to me. The damage of the explosion was not enough to kill a single Gaunt standing next to the primary target. It would stagger them, but it wouldn't kill them, which is pretty lame. I may decide to revisit that and see if my mind changes, because I only played 1 or 2 games with it, but I was not impressed initially, and I immediately wanted to swap off it. The second build follows the bottom row all the way to the end, gives you a lot more ammo, and focuses on improving thermal damage, which is the DPS, as they heat up. And this one felt better to me, mostly because I had almost 2 full mags extra to work with. I do think some of the damage numbers could be tweaked a bit, especially in regards to the discharge explosion once the target's fully heated up. It's not a bad weapon at all on lethal. It does some things really well, particularly as I said, boss killing, but its Majoris and Extremist killing potential is not amazing in its current form, which is not ideal when it's a single target weapon and its AoE build doesn't hit very hard. I feel like if I fully spec into a discharge build that's for that AoE explosion, I want that thing to pop with the force of a grenade and get like 5-10 kills, not just stagger a few dudes. But man, it is really satisfying to see a warrior get jibbed at max overheat. And if you're working together and lasing a target simultaneously, things will die really fast. And overall, I think it's a pretty decent weapon. It's super cool, thematic, and fun. Rounds out some builds really nicely. It's usable, it's enjoyable, it's reasonably well balanced. Wouldn't mind a bit more power fantasy here, especially against Majoris enemies like a warrior. But overall, I think the devs did a good job with it, and it's in a decent spot. Just a few number tweaks here there could put it in a great one. Let me know what y'all think so far, and I will see you in the next video. Any Pride, signing off for now. How's it going, guys?
Coming our way. Swapping out magazine.